And we are rolling. Good morning, afternoon, and or evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am back at it again, this time with a less historically based video, as I don't know what to call what I'm about to do, but it's just sort of 5 things that stood out to me about week 1 of the NFL season. I'm probably going to do the same thing for the game 7 of the Clippers and the Nuggets, and the opening shots fired of Miami and Boston for the NBA as well. But I figured I'd start this a little differently than other, like, my top 5 things videos. That's with a nice little spicy fun fact I learned. The last time the Bears and Packers traded was August 29th, 1998. That trade would be running back Glenn Milburn for a 7th round pick. And the thing is, the trade worked out really, really nicely for both sides. Milburn would have 3 return touchdowns in that season, 2 punt and 1 kick, and in the next season make the Pro Bowl as a return man for the Bears. He would end up becoming their all-time leader in kick return yards until a certain dude named Devin Hester, maybe you've heard of him, came along and broke that. Now the 7th round pick for the Packers, it's a 7th round pick. You would assume it to be a flyaway of some kind. Well, you'd be very mistaken, because that 7th round pick became none other than Donald Driver, who would go on to play all 14 years of his NFL career in Green Bay, make 4 Pro Bowls, and retire as the team's all-time leader in receptions and receiving yards. So, hey, Bears, Allen Robinson, please? Yeah, you get the point. Anyway, to start off, one of the things that really, really stood out to me, I don't know why it did, about week 1 of the NFL season, was the Denver Broncos and the fact that the Titans beat them exactly the way everyone thought that they were going to beat them. And that was put pressure on their young quarterback. More specifically, and it's not like Denver did a terrible job of protecting him, and this is what stood out to me. Lloyd Cushenberry and how he affected the game. Because when it comes to pass sets, the dude is a brick wall. He kept Joe Burrow clean in the SEC on a team that won the national championship. He is a good young center. But the problem is, this is where the lack of a true offseason really, really bit the Denver Nuggets in the butt. Because there were 2 snaps I saw that were fumbled, and definitely a lot more miscommunication between Locke and Cushenberry. It wasn't anything as bad as the 2 fumbled snaps, but it was clear that they were just not on the same page in some things. However, when it comes to the overall offensive line, I thought Cushenberry did a splendid job of running that, keeping Drew Lock mostly upright. But the Denver line was solid enough for the whole game. It's a very good young offensive line, Garrett Bowles excluded, except for those 5 games a year at the end of the season when he's really good for no reason at all. But that's neither here nor there. And that was a game that I found to be surprisingly fun, even though I was dead tired because of the Monday night doubleheader thing and going to bed at 1 a.m. It's not a problem for most people, but I have been waking up very early because of work for a solid month now. So, yeah. Anyway, the second thing that really interested me, or in this case, pained me, was the Green Bay Packers. Now, they did win. They did put up 43 points on the Vikings, but the problem was Kenny Clark and him getting injured and having to miss the rest of the game due to a groin injury. I am hoping beyond all hope. Well, not really beyond all hope, because it's probably not that serious, hopefully. God, don't let it be that serious. But if this happens again, because the Packers defense, what they decided to do was slide off a cliff and give up 24 points after Clark got injured. Now, Clark is one of the best nose tackles in the NFL. That cannot be mistaken. He is up there, and he is a beast. But that's a bit concerning to me I mean, obviously, you're losing out on a great player when he goes down with an injury. But if your entire defense just sort of falls apart with him gone, that is going to be very painful when it comes to like week 15 or week 17 and everyone's banged up and you're about to make the playoffs, because that's what I think the Packers will do. They'll probably get a wild card at like 11-5, 10-6, whatever. And say Clark goes down again, or he's just not 100% because he's been dealing with injuries, that may make or break your chances even at the playoffs if it's like halfway through the year. That is going to be very, very big moving forward. And I think the Packers must make more moves to improve on that mid defensive line. Yeah, it's not the best. Other parts of the defense, the secondary is pretty darn good. And by secondary, I mean Jair Alexander, underrated beast. Please bring him back. I got his jersey. But that's neither here nor there. Well, the third thing that really stuck out to me was, of course, hail to the Washington football team. That's right. They walked in there, went down 17, came out, scored 27 unanswered to beat the Eagles, and Eagles fans are ready to burn that place to the ground. Well, that's not the point. What the point I'm trying to make is this really proves something. Maybe it's just because I live in Virginia, and so I'm exposed to them a lot more, and I have been over the last few years. I've been to their training camps a couple of times, but this team was not really one to be trifled with 2 years ago. And I especially am referring to that front seven. That front seven has been very, very underrated for quite a while. Jonathan Allen is pretty darn good. Daron Payne is a beast of a nose tackle. Ryan Kerrigan is not what he once was, but is still pretty darn good. Montez Sweat is still a bit of a question mark because of the injuries. And then they went out and added Chase Young to the mix. And, oh my goodness. See what I mean about how underrated? I completely forgot Matt Ioannidis existed, and he's actually really, really good. So, yeah. Anyway, that's neither here nor there, but that was a huge statement to me, and not just for the meme. That football team is now winning the division after 1 week. That's self-explanatory. But people seem to forget, 2 years ago, before Alex Smith got hurt, the team was 6-3 and deep in that wild card hunt. And that was with a very, very similar front seven and a group that they've kept together, the front seven that is, for a while now. I think this is... No, because Montez Sweat was drafted last year, but the rest of them have been together for a while. That's neither here nor there. And as I trip over my words some more, I'll get to that point. Don't sleep on this team, because it appears all they needed to be at least relatively dangerous again was Ron Rivera and people getting mad about their name because they have nothing better to do in quarantine. So yeah, that's about that. Now, the fourth thing that I thought was fairly interesting that I want to see more of going forward is the Rams. And that's not just the Rams, it's more of like the NFC West in general. My sort of hot take for now is that the NFC West will send 3 teams to the playoffs. That division is a madhouse. And it's not just because the Rams beat the Cowboys, oh, big deal. But the way that the Rams beat the Cowboys, I found was really interesting. I really loved watching because, one, it was just sort of interesting, and two, it was really effective. Those sort of ball control, dink and dunk, death by 1,000 cut style of Rams. You know, even with Brandon Cooks gone, that receiving core is still nothing to scoff at. You know, Josh Reynolds is pretty good. Cooper Kupp is great to watch. He's one of my favorite receivers to watch in the entire NFL, and I don't know why. I think that's just because he can really truck people, and it's almost like there's not a catch of his where he isn't breaking a tackle or two. And of course, I would be remiss if I did not mention that running game, because that's something that I saw that they really lacked the season prior, is that they were willing to let their offensive line, which is back healthy by the way, punch people in the face and run through people with, Malcolm Brown and Cam Akers. Cam Akers didn't get the amount of touches that Malcolm Brown did, and I forgot Darrell Henderson even existed for a second. But that running back by committee going forward into next year and beyond was probably be really interesting for the Rams because they sort of they are not going to match the production of a Todd Gurley with it, pre-injury Todd Gurley, but the Rams can just not spend anything, essentially. They can just throw pennies at cheap UDFAs or cheap free agent running backs and just keep that offense going. They're definitely going to need to patch that offensive line up a bit, especially with Andrew Whitworth being like 38. You don't know how long he's going to play. You don't know if he's going to fall off a cliff or not. But the Rams going forward are very dangerous. And that division is going to be fun to watch because the Seahawks look like they're doing what they always should have done instead of just run the ball a billion times and hope you win. They are letting Russell Wilson loose. He is one of the best quarterbacks. No, he would be the best quarterback in the NFL if Patrick Mahomes just sort of didn't exist. But my point still stands. If you let Russ loose, you are going to win. And he's been carrying that team for a while. Let's be real. Over the past few years, Seattle would be a bottom 5 team if it weren't for Russell Wilson just putting them on his back and willing them to the playoffs, even if they don't go very far. And God, if that man loses out on the MVP again, I am just going to be saddened and frustrated, and my head will hurt and my stomach will itch, and that's about it. And then moving on to the rest of the NFC West, the Cardinals. People were really, really high on the Cardinals going into this season, and there was no reason for them not to be. Kyler Murray was going into his second year. He had a great rookie campaign, even if they didn't win a lot, and they just got DeAndre Hopkins. You got a quarterback who throws one of the prettiest deep balls in the entire league, paired up with one of the best and most physical down-the-field wide receivers in the league. The rest of their wide receiver core is okay. I mean, you got the corpse of Larry Fitzgerald, Christian Kirk, Andy Isabella's fast, and that's about it. Kenyon Drake turned out to be a great midseason acquisition for the team, and what I've really noticed is that the Cliff Kingsbury air raid has adapted more and more to the NFL, because it's not just a straight-up, like, Mike Leachian air raid, no. He has definitely incorporated a stronger running game into it. It's definitely not even the norm for a very passing-oriented league, but it's still there, which a lot of people seem to forget, And I like Kenyon Drake. I feel like his receiving and shiftiness fits this offense to a T, and their offensive line has improved. It still needs to get better because, I don't think any team, no matter how good their offensive line is, should turn down a chance to improve on it. And it's not even like the Cardinals' offensive line is fantastic. It's mid to below average. But they still need to improve on it, even though it has gotten better. And that defense. See, this is where the Cardinals trip me up. I personally always thought the Cardinals were not as good as some people were gonna say. I thought they would go 7-9, 8-8, 9-7 at the max, which is still pretty good in my eyes. And I think it would be like a close 7-9, 8-8, or 9-7, where their record could be all over the place. I think they're gonna play in a lot of close games that their offense is gonna keep them in, and their defense, it's all going to hinge on the defense. I heard the comparison made to the Ravens of last year with Lamar Jackson going into his second year, but I don't like that comparison very much because it was kind of established that the Ravens were a pretty good team, and the weight was all on Lamar Jackson's shoulders to be good and take that team to the heights that it went to. And for a while, he did. They went 14-2, and then the Titans stomped them, but that's neither here nor there. I don't know why I love saying that phrase so much. I think it's because I run out of other words. But the difference is, I think for the Cardinals, the weight is not really on Kyler Murray's shoulders because he had a really, really solid rookie year. I feel like everyone knew he was going to improve on it, and that receiving core was going to help him improve whether he wanted to or not, to be honest. But the weight for the Cardinals is on their defense, and that's another big difference between them and the Ravens of last year. The Ravens' defense was pretty darn good going into the season. The Cardinals' defense is still, suspect. Like, you got your Chandler Joneses, you got your Patrick Petersons, Jordan Hicks is okay. Isaiah Simmons is still a rookie. He's an athletic monster that they're playing at sort of a roamer in the middle, which I feel is perfect for his skill set, but he is still a rookie. And that's, not something you can really linchpin a defense around unless he is a transcendent talent of a rookie, both on the physical side and the mental side of the game, which he proved in the game against the Niners. Still needs some work. There was that really, really long touchdown to Raheem Mostert, and he let up another one because he was peeking into the backfield at the goal line. I still believe in him. That skill set he has athletically, it's almost a crime if it doesn't translate at this point, to be honest. He is unbelievable as an athlete. He just needs to work on the mental side of the game, if you get what I mean. And finally, the Niners. I don't think the Niners are going to be as good as they were last year. The Super Bowl hangover is a very, very real thing. It looks like the Niners are feeling it. I think they went 3 for 12 on third downs. They were 0-7 on third downs at one point, which is surprising. And the fact that like half the receiving core just decided to die before the season even started, leaving them with Kendrick Bourne as their starting X, that was already not a good sign to begin with. Jerick McKinnon's healthy somehow, but the Niners, because this is the thing with the NFC West, it's probably just a divisional thing in general, but all the teams in the NFC West can definitely beat each other on any given night. We saw that last year when Seattle and San Fran, both of their games were absolute classics. They were the two of the best games all year. We saw that last year when the Cardinals stole a game off of Seattle because all their running backs got hurt. The Rams, they fell off a cliff, but I think this sort of new super, super short game Rams can really, if not get to the playoffs, because that's still a suspect even with the third wildcard team, I think they can just be good enough to mess up someone's season. I think they're good enough just to be that wrench or that foot right into the nuts of a team that is deep in the wild card hunt, like, say, in Arizona late into the season. And I think that either way, even if the Rams do become that foot in the nuts of the NFC West, they're still going to send 3 teams to the playoffs anyway, be it Arizona or LA. I think you put either one of those teams in there and they could do about the same amount of damage, which even if one of those 2 teams makes the playoffs, I don't think they're going very far either way, because the Rams, these are not the same Rams that made it to the Super Bowl. Their defense kind of just consists of Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald. That's about it, even though Michael Brockers is underrated. But, yeah. And the same questions sort of apply to the Cardinals as well, if we're being honest. So I think one of those 2 teams might make the playoffs. And I think that both Seattle and San Fran are locks for the playoffs in whatever seeding you think. I know it's been one game, and the one game overreactions are done and outplayed, but I think Seattle's winning the division. If they're letting Russell Wilson loose, finally, Seattle's winning the division. There's no doubt about it. Now the 5th thing that I saw or / observed in week 1 that I found really interesting was, of course, Cameron Jarrell Newton on the New England Patriots, because the same thing that I saw that'll give Patriots fans relief and Carolina fans massive salt is the same thing I think could possibly end New England's season. And it's that Cam Newton looks like he's back to his old ways. And I'm not just talking about his arm and his throwing ability. That's been fine for a while, especially in another more short game oriented offense of New England, which people seem to forget. Before Cam got hurt in that Norv Turner system, he was thriving as a passer. And that was one of the reasons why I thought he would be really, really good in New England, because they like to run a lot of shorter stuff because of Tom Brady. And also, they can adapt. Remember, this isn't the first time they've had a mobile quarterback at the helm. Remember 2016, Brady was suspended for 4 games, Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt, and a playoff bound Houston Texans team walked in and got kicked to the ground by a Jacoby Brissett that hadn't learned how to throw yet. So yeah, they ran the ball a lot that game and ran the option with Jacoby Brissett many, many times, and it worked out for them. They shut out the Texans. Of course, there were other elements that went into it. I'm not just going to say Jacoby Brissett by himself carried the Patriots to a shutout. And even besides Jacoby Brissett, remember like a season or two ago when they had Danny Etling as their third string quarterback? I know it's a weird name to pick out, but he was the former LSU quarterback that they wanted to convert to wide receiver. And he ran in like a naked bootleg 64 yards to the house in the preseason. I don't know why I remembered that, but I did. So it's not like Josh McDaniels, because remember, it's Josh McDaniels working most of the offense, has never had experience with mobile quarterbacks. It's just that for 20 years, his quarterback was a statuesque pocket passer. And also, that mobility is probably the one thing that both excites and scares me about this Cam Newton that I see. Because remember, on both of his touchdown runs, he looks almost like 2015 MVP Cam. He was running into piles. He was carrying dudes into the end zone with him. He ran like a beast. And that's what scares me, because that may lead to more injuries, be it not with his shoulder as it has been with the past 2 seasons, but with the lower body, which is honestly probably even more worrisome, because you're not using the lower body only to run, you're using it to get torque in your throwing motion. And that could be disastrous, not only for the Patriots, but for the rest of Cam Newton's career. He's been very, very good for a very long time, but it always hurts to see a player whose career is just sort of derailed by injuries, even though they've had a good one up to that point of the injuries, And I want to see Cam Newton succeed. He's a very interesting guy. And him in New England just seemed like a weird pairing to everyone at the signing because of, Belichick's legendary stoicism and that sort of do your job mentality of the entire Patriots organization. And, Cam Newton's renowned flashiness and media attractiveness, let's say. But it looks like both sides are buying in very well. Cam Newton still looks like Cam Newton and that's a thing that I think people seem to forget. They already had a dude with a big personality on the team that they needed to learn to work around the personality and not just try and streamline him into a Patriot. And that was Rob Gronkowski. If you take away the personality, you kill Gronk the player as well. That's just facts. So they probably know how to work around a personable player like Cam Newton. Of course, different than Gronkowski, but, the point still stands. And I really want to see where this goes next, because they ran a lot more with their quarterback than they have ever done in New England. Like, think about it. When's the last time they had a mobile quarterback that... Never really. So, going forward, that AFC East is going to be really fun. It's a 2-horse race, but a really, really fun 2-horse race between New England and Buffalo. And I just really want to see how that shapes up as the season goes on. And by way too early pick for MVP, Russ. Just please give him it this year. Seattle's finally doing something with him that isn't just taking the ball off of play action after running it 80 straight times. So yeah, that's about it for this unscripted ramble. That's why the channel is R&R, Rants and Rambles. But going forward, I'm probably going to do a lot more of these as my longer term, more scripted content, the research for that, I love doing the research, but it takes forever. And my video that was supposed to come out today on Ozzie Newsome, I only got 18 minutes of footage because the camera died. It was around 50 minutes before all the audio was going to be edited down. So I got to redo all of that. So I figured I'd put this out as a stopgap in between to keep the uploading consistency going. And if you want to see more like it, please subscribe. I have exactly 0 right now. So if the 3 of you that ever watch this video really want to help a brother out, please subscribe. Let's end on that very, very wonderful and ego driven begging. And now, I guess I'm out for now. Deuces.